of the most admirable chasers you could possibly wish to see.
Yes, hello and a very warm welcome to what remarkably, after the snow and the ice and the various other freezing conditions, is the very first Race Hour Weekend Preview podcast of 2025. With that in mind, we better make it a good one. I'm your host, Tom Lee, and I'm happy to say we really have wheeled out the big guns for what's going to be a fantastic TV Days Racing this Saturday. All the live action previewed in the podcast in the company of these fine gentlemen. First up, our French racing analyst, no beret today, but the GDC tipster, Gambling.com's very own. Come in, say hello, Gary Connolly.
Hey Tom, how's it going? In subdued mood this morning. Unfortunately, I'm off for a root canal as soon as this podcast is finished. So hoping we can find a few winners to ease the weekend pain, no doubt. So yeah, good to be here before the pain of the dentist later on.
Well, another man, you have our every sympathy, but hopefully you won't leave us winnerless on the preview podcast. Another man who loved watching them stream over the canal turn. It's this man from Get Your Tips Out. Good morning to you, Joe Norris.
Morning, lads. Good to be back. I was lucky enough to go away for Christmas, but to be honest, I was looking forward to getting back, getting stuck into the racing again, and getting back into routine. So hopefully we can find a few winners today.
And continuing with my finest dentistry puns, drilling down into the action this Saturday, the 18th of January. He's looking absolutely box fresh for the show. It is Darren Hughes, our very own racing aficionado. Hi, Darren.
How's it going, Tom? You well? Yeah, really looking forward to this weekend, actually. The racing in January can often be a little bit hit and miss, but this weekend tends to be pretty good, and the addition of Windsor, the Winter Millions Festival there, along with Ascot, makes for a banging weekend. So really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I was going to say British racegoers in that part of the country have got a lot to enjoy over the expanded 3 days. But it's the Saturday we're going to zoom in on and focus on. Saturday, the 18th of January, 7 TV live races. The first of which, Gary Connolly, comes up at 1:40 at Ascot. It's a Grade 2. It's an all-ladies affair. The mare's Warfield hurdle, as it's historically known. Half a furlong short of 2 miles, so there will be no hanging about. What do we like here? And of course, why?
Probably going to be boring, although I'll probably look back at the current price, Kagisi. It's very hard to get away from her. Bringing the best form to the table. I think last year's juveniles were exceptional, and she wasn't far off the top of them. And Porty's thrived over the summer. Whether you want to take 4-7 first time out, she does run fresh. She does pull a lot. And saying that, her last performance at Punchestown was probably at best. She dropped her in, she settled grand. Hopefully she'll be a bit more professional this year. This type of trip, even if she does pull, she should probably have class them. So I think she's the most likely winner, but none of the prices. Like you can see, she's been backed for the mare's horse. She's 3-1 now. That's the ultimate hipster poke I've seen. I'd have doubt she'd get that sort of trip. And I see she's got a mark of 141 in the UK. If she was mine, that'd be popping her away to the Coral, the county hurdle, probably. But I'm not in Clan Sutton, unfortunately. So I think she'll win here, too short to back, and I won't have her for chat. So there we go.
Very quickly, is there one to chase her home at a price? Is there a bit of an each-way angle if she was to underperform? If hopefully not, but if she was to have a mishap somewhere around that 1 mile 7.5, is there something at a nicer price to keep her honest and chase her to the line?
Probably not, just with the dead 7, it wouldn't even appeal as an each-way race to me. You could probably give a chance to a few of them to come second, or if she underperforms. But at the prices and the dead 7, it'd be a watching race for the only.
No, all good. We will come back to you shortly. You will next be up for a fascinating, and there's a lot to say about the 2:30 at Haydock to Peter Marsh. Next, though, we are going to Haydock for race 2 on the TV schedule. Joe, your card is up because this 1:55 at Haydock, Grade 2 status, the old Rossington Main Novices Hurdle, the Supreme Trial, as we refer to it nowadays. What do we like here in the Northwest?
A lot like Gary, this has got another odds-on favourite, and I think he's hard to get away from. This race has been won by some nice horses, like John Bond won this a couple of years ago. And And I just think he's hard to get away from. His only defeat came in the champion bumper. He's obviously gone 2 from 2 over hurdles. He made all at overcourse and distance last time, beat Crest of Fortune. He looks a strong stayer over 2 miles. Obviously, the ground's going to be testing. I just think he's really hard to get away from. Looking at the race, I do think Peacenik will run well. And I think taking a bet on him at 2-1 without the favourite might be the way to go. Now, Peacenik has been a work in progress, finished 4th behind Regent Stroll, just made too many errors. Does need to jump better. Even when it won last time at Exeter, it didn't jump that well, I didn't think. But obviously, on a line through Crest of Fortune, he's still got a lot to fight with the favourite. So I do think the favourite will win, but I can see Peacenik running quite well.
Good stuff. Moving swiftly on, Darren Hughes, after the no-show from those two cowards, the 2:15 at Ascot, 4-1 the field, 10 runners, lovely each-way shape to it. What do you like here? 2:15 Ascot.
Yeah, so this is obviously hyper competitive. I think the ground is going to be pretty quick. It's already kind of good to soft. Didn't see any rain in the forecast I looked at. So you're probably talking about a pretty quick surface, which obviously brings the danger maybe of some non-runners. Martader's claims are pretty obvious here. I think this is probably more his trip than the sharper Kempton 2 miles he ran in last time, though he did run pretty well there. It does look like he'll have a pace to aim at. Kansas City Star and Bad, both pretty likely to go forward. I'd say that's kind of the pace map I drew from this. And both of them would have their own claims as well. But with that said, I can't help but feel like Martader or Martata, or whatever way we're going to pronounce it, is in the grasp of the handicapper at this stage. And I don't think he'd be far away. I'm reluctant to tip him for win purposes. I thought Teresita was a big old price for a horse who had his measure. Only 3 starts to go before she tipped up at the last. And she should really enjoy the quick surface. But with all that said, I came down on Scarface. He has a win in 2 seconds from 4 visits to Ascot over obstacles. On a line through Teresita, Martader should struggle to give him £21 is the difference between them. And while there is a strong pace on, I tend to prefer horses who are up in the van around Ascot rather than those held up. Reopposes Cot Mask here on £3 better terms, and I think he not only can Scarface turn around with Cot Mask, I think he can actually just go and win the race. Brendan Powell is down to his lowest riding weight in a year as well, so positive signs at about the 11-2 mark.
Yeah, that's the way we like it. I will just say the Race Hour Weekend Preview podcast is sponsored both by Betfred, thank you to them, and by Gambling.com. And with a view to that, currently, and of course these are subject to change and fluctuation, but the current prices for the 2 horses just talked up there by Darren. Scarface, as you mentioned, is 11-2, 5.5-1. Teresita is 12-1. So a couple of potential each-way angles for the 2:15 at Ascot. And I will all just say, further on the housekeeping note, you can follow us here on the Race Hour Weekend Preview on Twitter at @_Race Hour. That is the Twitter handle, @_Race Hour. Gary, you are known for many things, including having a very strong working knowledge of the French racing scene. 2:30 at Haydock, Saturday afternoon, 18th of January, is a fascinating Peter Marsh handicap chase. I say fascinating because 3 mile 1.5 is the trip. Heavy ground. It's going to be a stiff old test. And yet, a horse who once upon a time, many moons ago, used to play his trade in the likes of Compiègne, Pau, particularly Auteuil. We know conditions won't be a problem. We know he blooming loves Haydock Park. Heaven knows what it is. When Venetia Williams plugs in the sat-nav and says, take that horse box to Haydock Park, to Newton-le-Willows, to the northwest, to junction 23 of the M6 motorway, something switches on in Royal Pagaille. In his lifetime, in all codes, 6 times he's been to Haydock. Form figures, 1-1, 2, 1-1-1. 2 wins in the Betfair Chase, 2 wins in this race. An amazing horse. And yet, he's 11 years young. He's got lumps of weight to try and give away. How on earth is this going to pan out at 2:30 at Haydock?
Yeah, like if there's ever a UK track to replicate the type of French test in the slop, it's Haydock. And this lad loves it. He's looking for his hat-trick in the race. Comes here at the score, and I thought a bit luckily in the Betfair Chase. I think Grey Dawn, if he didn't make a mistake, he would have won. But I'm going to take him on. I think he's a bit short here. Stable form would be a slight concern for me. Running off a career mark, he's an 11-year-old and he's giving away lumps of weight. There's some decent rivals, so that'd be enough to put me off at the current prices. And I'd probably look to take him on with Trelawn. I'd be very strong in Trelawn for this race. Haydock, it's a bit of a track specialist, but he's already won here. He beat Iroko in a conditions race in November, over slightly shorter, but I think he's been crying out for the step up the trip. They tried it in Cheltenham, they were keeping him for a big day there, I think, to step him up, and he got as far as the second fence, I think. But I think a lot is in his favour here. He liked the track, he liked the ground, he liked his sort of tests. For a 9-year-old, it's very low mileage on the clock. There's a lot going in his favour, and he's a strong bet for me.
So that is Kim Bailey's Trelawn, ridden on this occasion by Tom Bellamy. Our sponsors are Betfred. Obviously, again, I will reiterate, subject to change. But at the time we're recording, Royal Pagaille, the ultimate Haydock Park specialist, top of the head, the 9-4 market leader, quarter of a point shorter than 5-2 Mr. Van Gogh for Sarah Bradstock. What a popular winner as ever any horse from that stable would be. And then perhaps the value angles headed by Kim Bailey's Trelawn, who is Gary's tip there. Trelawn currently 9-2. So it'd be interesting to see what price he goes off come 2:30 on Saturday afternoon. Skipping back to Ascot for the 250. That's a race with a bit of history. The Holloway's handicap hurdle, just half a furlong shy of 2.5 miles, the journey there. Back to you, please. Get your tips out. Joe, what do you like
this
here?
is a tricky race. I'm not going to hide away from that. I'm going to give Doddy the Great another chance. I know some of you would probably be screaming at TV now because, what happened last time. Let's just say it all went tits up, I think, at Kempton. Email Andy sort of whipped round at the start, completely distracted him, and then he was slow away. Then he tried to jump the first, and that Mahon's Glory jumped across him. And I think Nico just thought, not today, and just pulled him up. Now, Nico rides him. I'm guessing he would have had the choice out of that Bose Neath or this, and he's riding this. So I'll take that as a bit of a positive. Obviously, he's a bigger price as well. I mean, he's still lightly raced for a 9-year-old. This horse finished 4th in the Betfair Hurdle, which was a really good run. He's held up that day. He's run once at Ascot and won, which I always like to see, a bit of course form. I just think, a mark of 129, he should be well handicapped. I know he probably isn't the most straightforward. Like, he has wandered about a few times, even when winning. But there's going to be a load of pace on here from Stoner's Choice and Josh the Boss. And I think, they might go too hard here and he could pick up the pieces. This will be my last chance saloon with Doddy the Great. In terms of a danger, I think Outer Belly, I definitely respect a lot. Obviously, he was a big eye catcher last time at Doncaster, but the yard form has got to be a bit of a worry. They've only had 5 runners in the last couple of weeks, no winners, and that was enough to sort of put me off because he's a shorter price as well. One at a bigger price I thought will go well is Cam Sinas, but then he's off a career high mark. He's got a big weight, but again, I think he'll be suited if they go hard. So he's probably the bigger each way play, but Doddy the Great, one more chance for this.
One more chance for Doddy the Great, who, interestingly, you pick up on the Nico de Bonville angle. As you say, he probably would have had the choice between the 2 Henderson runners. They are Doddy the Great, currently 11-2, as we're recording the podcast with sponsors Betfred. Stablemate Bo Zenith, by contrast, nearly half that price. Carpet 3-1 favourite. So does Nico know something we don't? How's that one going to play out? But the suggestion there from Joe is that Doddy the Great at 11-2 might be the one for the 250 at Ascot. We're going back one more time to Haydock. It'll be a big old test up in the northwest, particularly over the staying trips. On the hurdles track they are for the 305, which is effectively, Darren, a 0-136, published as a 0-140, but top weight here 136. This is going to take a bit of getting, further than 3 miles, in the mud, in the muck, in the slop, whatever you want to call it. How does that influence the 305 at Haydock Park?
Yeah, well, it certainly influenced my selection anyway. As you mentioned, in stark contrast to Berkshire, the ground up around Haydock is going to be pretty heavy. And to cut to the chase, I'm going to be with Punta del Este again. I tipped him the last time I was on this podcast. And, despite the heavy going last time, he looked a little bit tapped for toe when they turned in. It was over 2 miles, 3 furlongs around the same course and distance, and pretty similar pretty similar ground conditions. He stayed on nicely enough, though, to be beaten only about 6 lengths. He looked at one point like he was going to fall out the back of the television. The form of that race could have worked out a bit better. The winner has since been pulled up, and the third was well beaten after drifting very badly in what looked a winnable race. I think Huntington or Hereford, one of those sharp tracks. But I'm inclined to think Punted Less Day is ready for another go at 3 miles. He's had 2 goes at it already and disappointed, but another summer on his back, and I think he'll be worth a few quid more in the Darren Yates dispersal sale later on in the year. So Punted Less Day for me, 7-2. He's favoured. It's a little bit boring, but I think he's a stayer on the up.
Yeah, just having a little look online there as well. Sponsors Betfred, at least to online punters, are 4 places rather than conventional 3 for that contest at Haydock Park. Now then, we've singled you out with the individual responsibility of burden for tipping the first of the 6 TV live races. But it comes to Ascot's Crescendo, the last of the TV action live. 3:32 at Ascot is a famous race, a real TV highlight, a treat for a Saturday afternoon. The Clarence House, Grade 1 status, 2 mile 1. Yes, we've only got 4 runners, but if you're going to have a quartet, make them good ones, exactly as you've got here, particularly the headline match. It is, of course, Henderson against Mullins. It is the UK against Ireland. It's a 9-year-old against an 11-year-old. John Bon against the comeback kid and Nergamine, plus a couple of handy, heavy hitters to keep them honest. How's this one going to play out? All 3 of you. And let me just throw in one other comment. 3:32. What an awful race time for a Grade 1. What's wrong with 3:30? I'm a traditionalist. Yeah, I'm a dinosaur. But 3:32, come on, surely we can do better than that. Gary, we came to you first. We'll do likewise again for the Clarence House. I don't like 3:32. I'll like it a bit more if you tell us what wins.
I think I'm in the John Bon camp here. I don't think I can have a Mergamin on the ground. I actually won't be surprised if they pull him. Just a horse with tendon injuries. If the ground gets any more lively, I would be a shock if he's a non-runner. You could probably pick holes in his form. The best of his form, he needs a bottomless, I think, and he's not getting any better at the age of 11. So I can't side him. He looks plenty short enough at 2-1. His comeback was good. I think he would have been beat by Banbridge if Townend didn't cut the snout off JJ. But I think John Bonney just looks a bit of character. He's hard to knock. He looks more polished. He settles better here. I don't think he gets the credit he deserves, this horse, for whatever reason. Like, he's rock solid. He actually looks improved this season. Very hard to pick holes in his form. Like, he is short enough. Probably throw him in a little muggy double with Cargeezy on the same card. Get you over your evens. And he's the one for me. Cracking race. But John Bond, like, he wins this handy enough, I'd say.
Does that translate into your thinking, Joe Norris, of get your tips out? Because, of course, we've only got 4. And I will just say to you as well, John Bond's the obvious one. He's the 9-year-old. He rarely gets beaten, etc. A less interrupted preparation. We've seen plenty more of him. All the recent evidence. He's running against the old men. And yet, is it John Bond? If so, why is it John Bond? But what about the other 2? Because let's not talk about this completely to the detriment and pay some respect to the likes of Edward Stone, who, albeit time waits for no man. And of course, these great horses don't go on forever. But are they good enough to at least keep these front 2 honest if they both turn up? How do you read this?
I do see it as a straight shootout between the pair. What I would say is I do think, personally, I thought Energumene was going to beat Banbridge that day. Obviously, I know Banbridge has come out and won the King George, so it makes you think, maybe it could have gone the other way. But I do think that. But then I'm still with Gary. I think John Bond will win because, the ground's in his favour and the track, I think, is in his favour as well. There's not much between them on official rating, so it could come down to their jumping. I mean, they both got mistakes in them. But, yeah, if John Bond's happy on the ground, I do think he'll win. But then, the only other thing playing on my mind is the stable form. And Mullins is absolutely flying at the moment. He's had 12 winners from his last 36. And Henderson's a bit quiet. He's had 1 from his last 9. Personally, I think I'd leave this race. I'm not going to have a bet in it. I think John Bond probably wins, but then, at the prices with the stable form, is an Energumene worth chancing? Maybe, but I'm happy to leave it. But I think John Mon probably just shades it.
And let me just ask you, of those other two, I mean, crikey, in most races, we would be paying enormous reverence and respect to the likes of both Boot Hill and Edwardstone. If one of the front two was to underperform, or both, which of those two to step forward and either cause a monumental upset, or indeed just chase one of them and give them a little scare?
Well, I think it'll probably be Boot Hill because I can never get that horse right. You know, Edwardstone, he's getting older now, and I know he ran well last time, but you know, I personally, I think Boot Hill could run quite well, but they're not going to get anywhere near these front two, I don't think.
All right, you've indulged me enough. I wanted a bit of mischief, but you're playing the straight bat. Last but not least, Darren, whisper sweet nothings and tell us something we don't know about this forerunner Clarence House Chase, or is there nothing to add?
It's pretty difficult. Like I risk of repeating what the two lads have said. Like there can be little doubt that an Ergomen is seen to best effect when the ground is softer than it's likely to be on Saturday. It's not to say he isn't perfectly effective on decent going. I think his Punchestown win in 2022 was on pretty quick ground, and that was pretty close to one of his best performances on the track that has been seen. But in the past, his peak performance probably has come on a softer surface, and in the past is probably the operative term when it comes to an Ergomen. His return drew mixed reviews. As Gary said, some speculation Banbridge had his measure before he tipped up. I'm not as convinced. I'd be a little bit more on the fence on that particular argument, but Banbridge should go on and win the King George, as Gary correctly pointed out, so it's not like the form is dreadful. With all that said, it's very difficult to pull the trigger on him at 11 years of age. John Bond definitely the more favourite of the two by the likely going conditions, and at this stage he's probably the faster horse of the two as well. Strikes me as a horse that improves at racing throughout the season, so I suspect he'll probably be the best model of himself that we have seen this season so far on Saturday. 4 to 6 or 8 to 11 wouldn't be everyone's cup of tea, but I wouldn't put anyone off, to be honest. I'm on the fence a little bit about what I'll do, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's a bad price. In the other two, I think Edwardstone is probably in the twilight of his career. If there's a match bout there with Boot Hill, who absolutely loves Ascot, I think he's 3 for 4 around here. I'd be very, very interested in taking a shade of odds against about Boot Hill to beat Edwardstone. I'm pretty sure that market will be available somewhere tomorrow morning. Somebody will stick their neck out, and if you're getting even money 11 to 10 about Boot Hill to beat Edwardstone, I'd be saying stick your chips in the middle there and best of luck.
Now there's a great angle for you. The match bet, Boot Hill against Edwardstone. Two horses who, taken in a different context when you take out the front two, would be the cornerstone of pretty much any other race. Great stuff. Boot Hill to beat Edwardstone, suggested there by Darren in a potential
what's your pace angle here? Is that Edwardstone going to go forward? Because if that's the case, then Boot Hill should be odds on to beat him, because he'll burn himself out trying to beat the other two, if you get me. I'd sooner him trying to come late. Whichever of those two, I'd sooner the one that comes later, kind of with a run and is ridden to run well. Edwardstone in the past has gone forward. An Ergomen is probably going to be hard to sit in front of, but it's hard to know. It's hard to sit back with Edwardstone too. So I suppose it depends on how you see the race turning out from a pace angle.
And that's the kind of intuition we love to try and dig out here on the Race Hour Weekend Preview. Thanks again to our sponsors. They are Betfred and Gambling.com. You can follow us on Twitter via @the_Race Hour. And I will just say that this time a week ago, when we were preparing to bring you a podcast, the weather was playing merry havoc and was ruining pretty much every plan we looked at left, right and centre. So we'll celebrate the fact that we're up and running and able to deliver you a show with some great racing to look forward to, north and south in the UK, Haydock Park and, of course, Ascot. Graded races, good handicaps. Gentlemen, you know the score by this point. Bad news, if your name is Gary Connolly, is that you're about to go to a dentist and be put into potentially excruciating pain, which is what we wish on bookmakers, particularly if you three can deliver a winning weekend nap. So, Gary, sweeten the blow, maybe pay the dentistry bill, which sounds like it could be extensive, by telling us, without further ado, what is your strongest bet of our first weekend preview podcast show of 2025. What do you like on the afternoon of Saturday, the 18th of January? We could be playing this to your grandchildren in many years, saying, you remember that day that Grandad tipped this big price winner on that day's racing. What's it to be?
Funny you should mention price. So in my spare time, I would run a little tipster group, and it's all price centric. Price is king on it. When I was doing this race last night, I loved the look of Teresita here at Ascot, the 2:15 at Ascot. Now, she was 20s when Darren was breaking down the race. She mentioned 12-1 Betfred. She's now into 10-1 as we speak. There's still a bit of juice in that price. I think I made her a 6-1 chance. She was going to slip Matador out the gate, Sandown on the final start last season, tipped up 2 out. She would have pissed in there. Came back, won a listed race at Carlisle in November. I thought she got a bit of a stones of a ride behind Germandi at Newbury, I think it was. He went on to win the Night Timber December Gold Cup on his next start, so the form is rock solid. She is improving. I think she's ahead of a mark. 10-1, still a bit of juice in the price. She'll do for me. I think she's a decent bet in that race.
Teresita, a winner 2 runs ago under Gavin Sheehan up at Carlisle. What's she going to serve out? There is money around for Teresita. And that's Gary's nap, 2:15 at Ascot. Joe, Gary's found us a bit of value. What are you going to serve up?
I think this is the best Nuds 2-shot I've seen for a while. And it's the 2:30 Haydock. It's the horse that Gary actually put up, Trelawney, for Kim Bailey. Now, I wouldn't judge him too harshly on that fall for Ascot last time. I think he just did a bit too much, and it set up for that closer, Victorino. You know, if you look at that win at Haydock on reappearance before that over Aroka, I think that's good form. And I think this horse, you know, with this race, you know, we spoke about Royal Pagaia. Like, that horse has to be favourite for this race, like, judged on his course form and obviously the Betfair Chase win. But, you know, it's not getting any younger. I think it could be opposable here. Mr. Vango had a tough race at Sandown. I know that form got franked yesterday. But again, I thought that was a really hard... Like, you know, both them top 2 horses have had hard races coming into this. And I just think Trelawney, you know, he's younger. He's more lightly raced. You've got 8 runners. You know, if you wanted to be really muggy, you could go each way at 9-2. But yeah, I think Trelawney's a good bet for this.
Not only that, Trelawney's deliciously lightly raced in his entire career. Only 4 starts over hurdles, 3 of which were victories. He's already, of course, won a couple over fences. And don't forget, exactly as you said, having outstayed Iroko, he's a horse who has few miles on the clock and is unbeaten at that track. So the more you look at it, the more likeable that is. I hear you loud and clear, Joe Norris. And the other point, observe, this is one for the Anoraks. It's now the training licence there in the, well, not too far away from Cheltenham in Gloucestershire, is Kim Bailey, ampersand Matt Nichols. So that seems to be the way it's going. That's another conversation entirely. The conversation I want to have with you, Darren, is what's going to win this weekend. What is your weekend now?
Yeah, I'm going to give you a couple before I give the nap, if that's all right.
Sure.
Obviously, Lowry's Bar runs in the 3 Mile Novice Chase at Windsor on Sunday. It's the Grade 2. And I think Jinko Blue is going to make the market for this lad, to be honest. I think he should get his own way out in front. Visibility was limited last time around Chepstow, but he jumped very well on Chase and debut. And from what we could see at Chepstow the last time, which, as I say, was limited, he jumped pretty well there as well. Looks like a horse has been turned inside out by larger obstacles. Step up to 3 miles will suit. And around this sort of idiosyncratic track, let's call it, it's pretty sharp around Windsor. I think he could be extremely difficult to peg back. So I just thought I'd give him a mention. The prices aren't up yet. Obviously, declarations will be out in the next hour or so. We're recording this at 9:30 in the morning.
Let me just interrupt and say Windsor is hard on the banks of the River Thames. If he doesn't win, we're going to fly you over and throw you into the Thames. Give us another winner.
Give us another winner. I suppose my nap at the weekend will be Punta del Este in the 305 in Haydock for the reasons already given. But if there's any sniff of even money, 11-10, 5-4, dare I say 6-5, 5-4 about Boot Hill to beat Edwardstone tomorrow, I'll be all in on that, I have to say, first thing in the morning. So one of those two will do me.
In the match race. Absolutely brilliant. Gentlemen, Gary, Joe, Darren, thank you very much. Excellent stuff, as always. This has been the Race Hour Weekend Preview Podcast in association with both Betfred and Gambling.com. Big thanks to them. Follow us on Twitter at @_Race Hour. We are done and dusted, folks. Enjoy Saturday afternoon. Back loads of winners. We'll be back in the same place next week See you then.
Relentless, remorseless, and pounding Cordan Star into submission.